This man belongs to an odd club, found only here in Helsinki, Finland. People who've paid the world's most expensive speeding tickets. His name is Keo Kopra, and his last ticket cost about $50,000 US for going 25 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. And it wasn't even his first offense.
Se on noin 500,000 markkaa.
I've had 3 tickets so far, for about $100,000 US.
Vajaa $100,000.
My wife couldn't believe the last one.
Tietysti koko asiaa sillä osaa ottaa.
Even the police were sympathetic, but in the end, they decided the law is the law.
Miten laki on kirjoitettu.
Finnish law says that a rich man must feel the sting of justice as much as a poor one, so traffic fines go up with your income. Keo is well off, so he pays a lot. But if he were poorer, he'd only pay $100 for the same offense. Huge traffic fines aren't the only strange ideas about justice coming out of this Nordic country. It's a world leader in keeping people out of jail. This policy reflects the spirit of the Finns, a humane society that reinvented its justice system. Until the 1960s, Finland had one of Europe's highest imprisonment rates. But then they cut their prison sentences and turned to rehabilitation. The reason is simple, says the head of the prison system.
Every prisoner in Finland comes back to society, but then we have to ask how he comes back. A serial killer or more human person.
Today, Finland has one of the world's lowest imprisonment rates and one of the most revolutionary approaches to crime. Expensive fines play a big role, and not just for bad drivers. Over half of those convicted of crimes pay fines instead of serving time, including con men and first-time burglars. Those charged with assault are hit with fines of about $3,000, and even more if they're rich, say Finnish criminologists.
Fines can be used as an alternative to prison sentences if you use fines that are heavy enough, fines which grasp your wallet. I don't think you can dispute on the basic principle that for a richer man, the fine must be bigger than for a poorer man for the same offense.
Harsh punishment is making a comeback in places like the US, where tougher prison sentences are seen as the answer to crime. But Finland has gone the other way. People under 21 are almost never imprisoned, while adults get short sentences that are rarely more than 4 years. And they serve them in some very unusual places. Welcome to Vanta Prison, where these gates are the only bars you'll see. This may be a high-security prison, but it isn't meant to punish. It's meant to heal. This is a daily massage class, meant to relax a room full of burglars and other criminals.
I'm trying to show him where he has some tensions. I found a place where he has some blocks. Of course, I don't think that when I come here it's like a magic touch, but the touch can be very magic too.
The prisoners claim this gentle treatment makes them gentler too, like this man who's in prison for assault.
We are learning how to trust other people and how does it feel that somebody touches you without violence or anything. So I learned that it feels great that somebody touches you the right way. So that wouldn't be possible a year ago, no way.
Despite Finland's soft approach, crime hasn't gone up. In fact, Finns believe tough justice just makes tough criminals. Prison should be more like the world outside, say Finns, so inmates can fit back into society after their release. These women are drug smugglers, thieves, and even murderers, but they're also mothers, which gives them the right to live with their babies in specially equipped wings of many prisons. Guards here are part-time nannies, and the rooms look more like nurseries than prison cells. Marika Vari was pregnant when she was arrested for drug smuggling. She was placed in a drug rehab program and gave birth in jail. Today, she seems grateful she and her child got prison sentences.
Mulla on ensimmäinen lapsi, niin tästä on ollut tosi paljon apua, että mä olisin voinut olla.
This is my first child, so being here has really been of great help.
On ollut tosi paljon tukea ja apua tästä.
It's kept my head straight, and I've been able to stay away from drugs.
Se on ollut nyt ihan siis voisi sanoa, että mun pelastus.
I was awfully afraid to come,
Mitä olisi käynyt, jos mä olisin jäänyt.
but now I can say that it saved me.
Ja sitten ei olisi lasta.
In most countries, women are automatically separated from men in prison. But in Finnish jails, they mix freely, in classes and in job training.
Päiviä.
Kaisa Tammi-Moilanen is a long-time warden in the Finnish prison system. She says that having men, women, and children together is good for everyone.
Having both men and women helps have a nicer atmosphere. People want to take care of themselves, they want to comb their hair and look okay more than they would usually. I would be worried about some of those ideas that these men would have about women after they have spent years and years in a just male prison. How would they behave and act in a normal society or normal setting where you will be meeting both sexes?
Many of Finland's prisons are even more open-minded. In fact, they're called open prisons because there are no bars anywhere. These prisoners are restoring an old castle wall that's part of a local tourist site. The prisoners here are a typical mix of drug smugglers and thieves, and they've all volunteered to be here. This is Echo, who's in jail for using and selling crack cocaine. But these days, he's off drugs and getting his highs by learning to be a crane operator.
This place is very nice place. I like too much here. Many years and crack, but now it's now never crack. It's life. It's good now, and go home and new life. Maybe, I hope.
Echo and the others could escape easily any time they want because there's no fence between them and the community next door. But this rarely happens, and everyone seems to be good neighbors. Like all prisoners who work in Finnish jails, Echo is being paid very well. He makes about $8 Canadian an hour. Out of his salary, Echo pays for room, board, and other expenses. He goes home on leave some weekends, like most prisoners. It's all meant to prepare him for returning to the world outside.
I have to pay out of my salary many of the things. I have to pay my housing, I have to pay my food, I have to pay my taxes. And it's a good thing that prisoners understand you earn money and you have to spend the money to things you need.
Prisoners here live in comfortable homes, which the warden is happy to show off.
We have rooms for 3 inmates, women, and each of them has their own room. And this is a kitchen which they share. And during weekends, they do their food here. And there's a sauna where the inmates have opportunity to bathe 2-3 times a week.
The prisoners here would get very different treatment in other countries for the same crimes. Several were convicted of drug smuggling, which would put them away for decades in the U.S. or get them shot in China. But the Finns prefer to treat them kindly and hope they return to society as better citizens. Some of these prisoners aren't even Finns, like this smuggler from nearby Estonia.
Esimerkiksi mä olen kuullut, että vankilat on semmoiset. I guess I thought it would be like in Estonia. 7 girls in the same room, and all you get to eat is porridge. This is like a spa compared to Estonian prisons. Here, it's possible to do so many things. I can study, train in the gym, take walks.
We have had really tough and rough cases, and everyone says that they hate the society. And after month 2-3, they start to change. They are respected, and they start to be proud of themselves. Perhaps first time in their lives. We feel that this way it's done pretty well.
Finland isn't the only place rethinking the relationship between crime and punishment. Here in Canada, we're also experimenting with curing criminals instead of just crushing them. But we're still unsure which way to go. This is Kingston Pen, Canada's oldest prison and still one of its toughest. In recent years, we've been giving harsher penalties and longer sentences to these criminals, following the lead of our U.S. neighbor. But unlike the U.S., we don't just punish our criminals in prison, we try to change them from within.
How you doing, man? You think I can use your car tonight?
Not a chance, not tonight.
I tell you I need the car, man. You're gonna give me the car. Are you gonna give it to me or I gotta take it?
Well then, buddy, you gotta take it.
Maybe I should just come over there and fucking maybe feed it to you right now.
Bring it on, tough guy.
All right.
Most long-term offenders in our federal prisons have only a grade 8 education and often come from abusive homes.
Just as a reminder, make sure you're still here with us.
Now these men get classes called cognitive skills. They're learning how to get through life by using their brains instead of their brawn.
Rob, you know, I got some heavy plans tonight, man. I was wondering if I could use your car tonight.
Tonight's not a real good night, bud.
But I really, really, really need the car, man. There's no other way.
Sorry, bud. I just hope this doesn't affect our friendship any. You know that I really do need the car. I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay, role play stop. Good work. Cliff was being pretty persistent.
Many men here were convicted of violent crimes. But now some of these convicts sound as gentle as kittens.
Use the same response.
Before, I probably would have used my size and told him, listen, man, you're going to give me your car and that's it. You know? I would have said, listen, I can take this guy's car anytime I want. You know, but it more or less helps me to understand somebody else's feelings and stuff, you know, their needs, and mine don't come before his and stuff.
Okay, so
this Canadian program has a global reputation and has been sold to other countries, including Finland. But here at home, skeptics think you can't change some cons. They're just conning you.
I mean, there's some people that are just beyond salvation. There just are. We have to accept that. The best efforts have been made on everyone's part to rehabilitate these people, and they're just career criminals. But we're so bleeding-hearted about it that everyone is considered to be a good candidate for rehabilitation. When we should lock them up and keep them there for as long as the sentences need to be to ensure the public is protected.
But the woman who runs Canada's prison system believes that getting tougher won't make us safer.
harsher penalties will not lead to safer communities. You have 30 years of research that says absolutely punishment in and of itself has at best no effect, at worst the effect of more crime being committed.
For now, Canada has found a compromise between hard U.S. justice and softer European ways. So prisoners in maximum security prisons like Kingston are now getting U.S.-style sentences, twice as long as in Europe. But unlike the U.S., most inmates will gradually earn their way down to medium and then minimum security prisons that seem closer to a Finnish prison than anything south of the border. At first glance, these institutions look more like suburbia than Sing Sing. That's because they're meant for rehabilitation, not revenge. But do they work? This is one of Canada's state-of-the-art prisons, where inmates live together in small modern cottages. The inmates here say they've changed a lot since they've arrived. Jeff Lalonde spent over 10 years in maximum for committing a murder when he was 18.
Sometimes you can pat him right on the head.
But he's worked his way down to minimum for good behavior. Now he's at Frontenac, an open facility in the countryside near Kingston.
I think the 3rd, the 7th.
Life here looks pretty comfortable, but like Finland, they are preparing inmates for eventual release after years behind bars.
Plan on growing?
The inmates make their own meals in a modern kitchen with food they buy at a nearby store. They say that choosing your own menu is a start in running your own life.
You get to cook for yourself. You get to cook what you want. You get to eat what you want. So you learn a little bit about self-sufficiency, responsibility, and it's another skill. It gives you the ability to see that, yeah, you can make it on your own.
These men have all served long sentences in tough jails, but now they're learning to adjust to normal life, and it's full of surprises.
One of the shocks that I first had to deal with when I got here, coming back at nighttime and seeing streetlights and cars and traffic. So realizing that the real world is just out there and has continued to move since you've been in, that's something you have to get yourself used to and get ready for. You know, to see the sun go down after 6 o'clock at night is, you know, there's no words to describe something like that.
Back in the 1800s, our prisons were meant to make you penitent, as in penitentiary, and prisoners spent their days in silent reflection. Jeff has spent his time rethinking his violent youth in Ottawa street gangs.
I took a man's life. I threw a man over a bridge during a robbery. I was 18. I was rather destructive and reckless, arrogant. It was very unfortunate and tragic circumstances, and of course I made the choice to be there at that time and do what I did, so here I am.
Frontenac Prison is on a large farm where inmates learn all kinds of skills. Working here has given Jeff a small taste of freedom and even a sense of family.
Babies! Hey! I raised them. I was their surrogate mother, right from birth. I taught them how to, you know, get used to being around human beings. I tried to be the best human being I could be to them, be an example, you know. Spiritually, it's a very healthy thing to do, you know, to respect what the animals have to teach you. Yes, baby. You know, you come to a barn every day and get 1,000 kisses for free.
Prison life can offer a new perspective on your old life.
I was young, 19, 20 years old, and sent to prison for a life sentence. Like, at the time, you know, I felt that I didn't deserve a life sentence. So I was, you know, I was young, I was angry, and it was everybody else's fault except for mine, you know? And it took me a long time to realize that it wasn't anybody's fault except for mine. You know, it's a bitter pill to swallow, but I'm happy that I swallowed it, because now I can get on with my life, you know? I've wasted almost 36 years of it.
A couple other guys. Yeah, they come down. I see you guys all down there. I couldn't figure out.
Prisons like this may get rave reviews from inmates, but critics argue this is no way to treat a murderer. They call this sort of place a club fed.
When you're in jail, you're in jail. You're not supposed to have a better quality of life than people out and about in the community. It's cottages, it's communal living, it's in some cases golfing and having a good old time.
My best day in prison was still not as good as my worst day on the street.
Rick Sauvé served 17 years in a variety of prisons, and he says any time is hard time, even in a minimum.
I was in a minimum security camp when my father had a stroke. I couldn't go to him. You know, that's reality. That's about being in prison. When my daughter, when she was growing up, I wasn't there for her. So it was no club fed. I didn't enjoy 1 minute of my time in prison.
In the U.S., most prisons are meant to punish, with harsh, humiliating treatment that's supposed to make you suffer. But a central principle of Canadian justice is that losing your freedom is enough punishment, and prison is there to remake you.
The easiest thing would be to do imprisonment only. That's easy to do, imprisonment only, because you walk away from the person. In Canada, it's not about walking away from the person. It's about finding keys to transform their lives. That's the tough job.
How to punish criminals without crushing them is a problem that many countries are struggling with. But one nation has been doing it successfully for centuries: Japan. Here in Japan, everything is centered on community life, which is easy to see when people gather for events like this, the 1,000-year-old Sanja Matsuri Festival in Tokyo. The Japanese take great pride in fitting into society, and that's also at the heart of their unusual approach to crime and punishment. It combines the rewards of community belonging with the stigma of shame for those who step outside the law. Those who stray from the rules can end up behind bars, in prisons that are a ruthless course in obedience and humiliation. But very few people wind up in jail, because Japan has, by far, the lowest imprisonment rate in the developed world, as well as the lowest crime rate. The U.S. has over 200 armed robberies per 100,000 people, but Japan has fewer than 2, about 1/100th the U.S. rate. What is Japan doing right? Part of the answer lies in Japanese society, where conformity rules. These people picking up litter on a Tokyo street aren't city employees. They're young managers who spend an hour a day cleaning the sidewalk outside their company. Not to do it would embarrass their company, their community, and even their family. Japan's low crime rate is partly due to its great respect for any law, no one here ever crosses the street until they're supposed to. But the low imprisonment rate is also due to the country's justice system, which uses both conformity and community to shame offenders instead of sending them to jail. It starts with the local police, who work out of small booths that dot Tokyo and other communities. They're called kobans, and there are over 7,000 of them across the country. Kiyotaka Ikeda is a typical koban officer, working out of a small police box that's also his home. Koban officers like Ikeda are respectfully known as Omawari-san, Honorable Mr. Walking Around Man, because they're always walking the beat. In Ikeda's case, a little island near the city of Yokohama. He's a one-man justice system who's expected to visit every house twice a year.
As a Koban officer, I take care of everything. Juvenile delinquency and drugs, traffic violations. I'm really a jack of all trades. That's all there is to it.
Ikeda knows what everybody is doing because they tell him, like local housewives who fill him in on the latest neighborhood gossip. This helps Ikeda stay one step ahead of troublemakers and deal with them before their crimes get too serious.
Well, I think I'm the sheriff of the place. This island is my jurisdiction, my territory. So I always feel that I bring safety and peace. But I'm not a feudal lord.
The country's top legal authority is Yuki Furuta, who is Japan's chief prosecutor. But unlike prosecutors elsewhere in the world, his main job is to keep criminals out of jail, even after they commit crimes.
When an offender is put in a jail, he is completely isolated from society, and it can be difficult for him to return to society. So we think it's better not to put him in a jail if he can be rehabilitated on his own. This is better for preventing crime in the future.
To avoid jail, offenders must show remorse for the trouble they've caused. They must confess their crime and then apologize to their victim and society. Tadeo Saito is a young Tokyo bar owner who was arrested for drug possession, a crime that Japan treats very seriously. Like most accused, he was expected to show his remorse in front of the community. He had to bring in family, friends, and employers to testify to his good character and listen to his apology, a process Saito found very humiliating, just as the legal system intends.
My parents came, but my older brother is the one who testified. He told them about when I was a child and how I grew up. He said that he didn't know I was doing drugs. And the most important thing is, if I would be let out, the family would be responsible and take care of me and watch over me.
Marika Omatsu is a Canadian judge with Japanese roots. She studied Japan's justice system, and she's impressed.
90 to 95% of people charged with a criminal offense in Japan enter a guilty plea. If you admit your guilt and say you're sorry and won't do it again and perhaps make compensation, then they will give you another chance.
But things are much tougher when you reoffend. Saito got a suspended sentence the first time, but a few years later he was picked up for the same crime, and apologies weren't enough.
This time my parents cried, and I felt really sorry. My parents and many witnesses pleaded on my behalf to my lawyer. Since this was my second time, the lawyer knew that I would go to prison.
And Japanese prison is as merciless as the courts are merciful. Prisons are run with military harshness. Inmates must show total obedience. They spend hours marching about in a harsh lesson in group behavior that's meant to force them back into the fold.
In Japanese prison, discipline and order is very important. We consider it's the most important thing in prison life. But also, we consider it's good for them, to keep in good fitness or their, their soul's psychological state. Good behavior in prison is maybe good behavior in community.
Sentences in Japan are painful but short, around 2 years on average. Saito found it all a crushing experience.
Everything had rules. When you want to say something, you have to raise your hand. If you speak without permission, they punish you. Like 1 week sitting on your knees. How can I explain? I came to a dreadful place. It truly was a terrible place.
But like many Japanese, even Saito reluctantly seems to accept the rules of the system as the price for having a law-abiding society.
If I was caught only once, I wouldn't have to go to prison, but I was caught twice. That's why I went to jail. They did give me a chance, so maybe it's good.
After Japanese prison comes the promise of redemption. Once the prisoner is released, he's welcomed back into the community by a special sector of justice. That's Japan's probation officers, 50,000 of them, all volunteers, who try to guide the shamed criminal back into the group. Kenichi Miyakawa is a Shinto priest at this small shrine outside of Tokyo, like his father and his father before him. And like them, he's also a volunteer probation officer.
I always feel that people can change. This is one of the Japanese philosophies. You don't exist alone. You exist with the people around you.
His prisoners visit him regularly, and he's helped many to find a job or a spouse and a new place in the community.
For us, the most important thing is to help them get back into our community. I think that helping through kindness is more powerful. But I think those feelings are different in the West than the East.
But are we really so different? Back in North America, there are people determined to show that even those who've committed terrible crimes can be safely returned to their community. Maybe they can even make their community safer. Rick Sauvé spent years in Kingston Pen before earning his way to minimum and eventually to freedom. But he comes back every week with John Reeves, another ex-con, to help men prepare for freedom that's still years down the road.
People have this preconception that murderers are monsters, that they're people without a face. Well, this is a face. And this is the face of a murderer. And that is the hardest thing for me to do, to take a hard look in the mirror and drop all those things. All the anger, all the the remorse that you carry, the shame, the guilt.
Those are things you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. If you allow yourself to become bitter inside, it eats you up. As you move through the system and start leaving that stuff behind, that's what I mean by getting out while you're still inside. I was released before I got out the door, because I knew that once I walked out the door, I would never come back to prison. Although I'm here now.
Every day you're back.
But that's why we come back, is to help guys like you find a way to the door and be successful going through it.
Rick and John run Lifeline, a group that helps lifers survive prison and return to the world outside, like they did. Both will always be under the shadow of life sentences for murder.
I killed a member of my own family, and so, you know, my family was torn. They're supporting me, but they're also the victims. One of the only things we can really do to give back and to do honor to the victims is to serve the community, so that we can show that we're not just the person who committed the crime and did those awful things, that we can do something else, that we can be better than that, than the person who ended up in prison.
Don't force it, big fella. Start again. So I want to deposit money. I hit deposit. Yeah.
Today, John's helping Fred Sweet, another ex-con who's learning to cope with the world after 24 years inside.
Yeah. How much cash can I withdraw?
Things have changed a lot since he went to prison, but he's trying to get the hang of it.
I don't know. I've never robbed a bank, but it looks easier than robbing a bank.
Fred says that Canadian prison has rehabilitated him, but he thinks it wouldn't have happened if we had listened to the tough justice lobby.
If you get tougher, then you take a potentially dangerous person and you just make him dangerous. Believe it or not, we are human. We may have been running around robbing and killing people, and that's not the proper thing to do. We understand that, but we still are human.
We do a lot of public education. We go into a lot of schools and talk to kids and things like that and bring a message that if they continue with their lifestyle, they could end up inside. So, do you feel any less safe that we're out in the community? Or would you rather us being inside? We're putting back into the community.
So, what should we do about crime? We've come a long way since an 8-year-old boy was imprisoned in Kingston, and inmates were flogged for laughing or winking. Today, our prisons stress rehabilitation, while corporal punishment is a relic of the past. Yet some experts argue that prison itself is a form of psychological abuse that's only needed for a few violent offenders. A leading Scandinavian criminologist says there's little evidence that harsh punishment works, so why not use more humane ways?
Prisons don't work in any sense of the word, and what we should do is essentially to abolish them. There are some people who are so dangerous, I think, that we probably have to make exception for them. But they will be very few. In America, in Canada, in England, in Scandinavia, you could diminish the system enormously.
But even if tough justice doesn't deter crime, many people feel it's still needed, because some crimes must be avenged.
There's got to be, I think, a message there that if you commit a crime in this country, in this province, that there is a penalty to pay. And I think we owe that to the victims.
Everyone agrees that prison will be with us for a long time. But here in Canada, many legal experts wonder if it's a costly obsession that prevents us from finding alternatives.
Incarceration is a very expensive thing. You take a thief and lock up a thief in Canada for a year, you're talking $50,000. The choice then is, can you reduce crime investing that $50,000 in some other way?
the idea of simple vengeance is finally being questioned as more countries seek ways to protect society without resorting to cruelty. Crime and punishment is one of the oldest issues in human history, even older than the story of Cain and Abel. Yet it's possible that our understanding of it is only just beginning.